Hi, it's March 23rd, and this is your daily devotion. Happy spring. Don't you just love spring? I love when our simple, plain redbud trees are decked out in their purple glory suddenly, and when the bare spots of grass suddenly have these gorgeous daffodils bursting forth. I almost feel like I can hear the earth crying out, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. God gives us so much beauty, so many invitations to know God and the glory of God. Of course, Jesus is the best way to know God, and Jesus calls us to share what we know of God with others, to know Christ and make Christ known, right? And so the question we've been looking at recently is, how do we do that? How do we follow Jesus in such a way that we are a light? There's a light within us, there's a light that shines through us. How do we follow the way of Jesus, the Christ? Recently, I have been reintroduced to a Scottish preacher and author of the late 19th and very early 20th century, George MacDonald. I actually first discovered him in seminary and in some quotes and followed up with books. He actually wrote a lot of the early stories, fantasy kinds of stories that actually inspired J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, particularly C.S. Lewis. And in our Great Divorce study, George MacDonald figures prominently in the story. Lewis pays him tribute in that story. But here's a quote that I found recently as I was looking through one of my books, and I have yes, 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 and a bunch of stars. So I thought, let's look at that one. And this is the quote. It relates to how we show the light of Christ. This is MacDonald's words. To let their light shine, not to force on them their interpretations of God's designs, is the duty of Christians toward their fellows. If you set yourselves to explain the theory of Christianity, if you who set yourself to explain the theory of Christianity had set yourselves instead to do the will of the Master, the one object for which the gospel was preached to you, how different would now be the condition of that portion of the world with which you come into contact. And then I'm going to skip down a little. He said, if we lived the way of Christ, if we truly lived out His grace, His truth, His love, folks that passed by would say, quote now, I will turn aside and see this great sight. They would be drawing nigh to behold how these Christians loved one another and how just and fair they were to everyone they had to do with. And note that, and then he goes on to give specific, they had the best goods and they were the most fair weights, and gives many common examples. Ending it by saying theirs was a home where you could never say religion was one thing and daily living another. In other words, they lived the way of Christ. They didn't just talk about it. If you want inspiration toward this way of being and thinking and acting, just read the book of James. It's not a very big book. Read the whole book of James. It will inspire you. I'll read one little part, James 1:22. But be doers of the word and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror. They look at themselves and go away and immediately forget what they were like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. I would say not only them, but all who see the light shining will be blessed, because they will see the glory of God and be drawn into that light, the light of Christ. Enjoy this spring day. May the sun shine warm upon your fields, and may the sun, Jesus, God the Son, shine warm and bright in your life and through your life. Have a great day.